knew I was cutting it too fine with the last train home, but it was unavoidable. London was busy as usual, a mass of bright lights and racing traffic, leaving me to practically run through the streets so I wouldn't be late. I walked up the escalator at the station. When I got to my platform, I just knew I'd missed it by seconds. I could just about hear the train departing in the distance, and so I pottered through the gates, wondering what I was going to do. The platform was empty, and the board stated that no more trains would be departing that evening, and so I considered my options. It was that quiet time at night when the world seemed to come to a rest. A man was locking up, walking along the platform, slowly brushing away, and the station was calm. It was strangely restful, and I felt very relaxed, like a comforting haze had been cast over me, settling me, and making my eyelids heavy. Then, no one was there. The man sweeping the platform had left, and I looked around. The platform seemed to have changed in an instant without me even noticing. The brightly coloured plastic benches had gone, and there were wooden benches with intricately carved backrests and posters that looked incredibly old and faded. This should have been shocking, and I could not explain it, but I was not at all scared. I loved history, and seeing the modern display pared back so the old station could peek through was exciting. I walked up and down, marveling at the smell, which was something I was not overly familiar with. Coal-rich and sooty. I was thrilled. It felt like something was going to happen, and all thoughts of getting home late were soon forgotten. A noise. Something was approaching in the distance, and it was an unfamiliar sound that I couldn't quite place. Then the air became deliciously warm around me, like a welcome hug, and very slowly, a steam train pulled up. Now the noise made sense, as the train made that characteristic chuff-chuff sound that was recognizable up close. There was a loud hiss of steam as it pulled in very slowly. I moved closer to see better. It was a remarkable thing with long green carriages decorated with streaks of maroon. There were large windows, and I could make out old-fashioned lamps inside, which emitted a lovely glow onto each table. The door opened. The conductor stepped off. He looked very smart in a sleek navy coat with maroon trim on the sleeves that matched the train. His cheeks were ruddy, and he pushed his hands together and gave me a little bow. I didn't know what to say to him. Was he expecting to see me? He coughed.
Good evening, sir,
he said. Hello, I replied, feeling a little awkward at the encounter.
It's marvellous to see you here tonight,
he said, like he knew me well.
Do you happen to have your ticket to hand?
He asked. I didn't, but somehow I knew one was near. He was reaching out. I looked down, and a thick piece of paper sat in my hand. It simply said, "Ticket" on it. There was no information about a destination, but that was more exciting in some ways. There was a logo, and when I peered closer, I could see it was the sketch of a small mountain. The conductor reached out and checked it, then handed it back to me. All seemed well, and he gestured for me to climb on, with a small nod of the head. I walked onto the train and heard him board after me. Then there were 2 short blasts as the train began to move. I should have been more concerned, but that relaxed feeling was still sitting in my whole body. It seemed like everything was meant to be happening for a reason. You see, I'd always wanted to go on a steam train, and I'd known it would happen one day. This just wasn't quite how I'd expected my journey to go. It was packed. So many people on the train. Some sat quietly, while others chatted and laughed. The train's interior was full of polished wood, and it was just as cozy inside as it had looked from the platform. I felt a little nervous, but the train was making good headway. Looking out of the window, it was clear that something magical was happening. We'd only set out a second ago, but the scenery was unlike anything I knew in London. There was a shimmering light from the full moon, and it showed the outline of vast, snow-capped mountains way above us as the train chugged along through a deep ravine. It was like we were in the Alps, though I had no idea how we'd reach somewhere like that so fast. I turned my attention to the passengers. It was a strange thing, like a fancy dress party, with many people in all different kinds of attire. There was a tall man with a very long red beard, wearing a snazzy dinner jacket and a silk bow tie in emerald green. He sipped on what looked like a martini. The man stood and came up to me. "You're here," he said, like he was excited to see me. I had no idea who the man was. I'd never met him before, but it was nice that he was so welcoming. "Come," the man said to me, and he leaned in close. "You're new here." "Yes, I just got on. What is this place?" I asked. "The midnight steam train," he said, as if that were obvious. "What's that?" I asked. "Well, if you're in the right place at the right time, or if you're in a bit of a bind, it knows," he said. "It picks you up and takes you all around, lets you enjoy a few hours in a place where nothing else matters." This made very little sense, but also, at the same time, somehow made perfect sense, and I wondered how that could be. I looked around again and tried to work out who was around me. Have I gone back in time? He laughed heartily. "Like I said, it picks up people from all over the place, from the past, from the future. Anyway, you could do with a drink." He produced another perfect-looking martini from nowhere, so now he had one in each hand. He handed the fresh one to me, and I took a long sip. It was ice cold and delicious. "Now, this is our job," the man said, gesturing to the crowd around him. "What do you mean?" "Our job is to ensure you have a memorable evening, and we take it very seriously," he said. "So, let me start." He gestured for me to sit before him, which I did, feeling the plush leather seat below me. Then the man produced a pencil from his sleeve, and he held it lightly between 2 fingers, looking at me intensely. I wondered if he was going to hypnotize me, and I felt myself becoming very relaxed. Each breath was like a measured wave, in and out, in and out. The tension slowly left every part of me. The man did not stop looking at me, and his eyes were bright. I was ready, and it was clear the show was happening for me. I watched in awe as the man took the pencil and slowly held it out on his palm, and then I stared as it levitated until it was nearly a foot in the air. He made it spin once, very slowly, just by looking at it. I'd learned a few magic tricks as a teenager and could vaguely remember how this one was done, but I pushed those thoughts out of my head because I wanted to feel the wonder of the trick. Sometimes it's best to just savor the thrill of magic and not think too hard about the misdirection. The man, or magician, as I could see he was now, let the pencil fall back down slowly, and there was a rumble of applause from everyone in the train carriage. He took a slight bow. I looked down at his hands again, and he held one small red scarf. It was tiny, a shred of a thing, and then with a flourish, he pulled hard. A vivid blue scarf came out, tied to the red one, then a yellow scarf knotted tightly to the end, then purple, then green, and each one flew upwards as he tossed the long rainbow scarf in front of his face and threw it in the air. Many people watching stretched their hands out to catch the scarf, but one hand went higher than the rest. It was a woman, and she grabbed it. My focus turned to her as she strode out from the crowd with her hand on the scarf. She wore a flapper dress adorned with sequins. Her high heels were bright red, and she tapped them together and then smiled warmly at me. "You're here," she said. There was something so pure about the joy in her tone, even though I did not know why she was so delighted. But she rose. She put the scarf down on the table and then grabbed my hand. We walked through the carriage. Following her felt very safe. Now and then, she looked back to ensure I was still there. It was like this train was operating under some magical force, because we seemed to walk through so many different carriages, far more than I'd seen when we'd boarded. I almost ran to catch her up as she danced down the aisle of the train, and when I looked up, I saw the overhead luggage racks filled with leather suitcases in every colour imaginable. There were so many people, and I recognized fashions from the 70s and the 80s. There seemed to be no distinction based on time period. Everyone was sitting, playing cards and chatting together. I walked through so many carriages, but I didn't tire, and I felt myself at one with the train's speed. I realized that I had expected the train to have more stops, but there were no more. Every time I felt it judder slightly, the speed picked up again, and I walked and walked. Each carriage had something unique to look at. I saw a fortune teller, and she smiled and waved. She had a deck of worn tarot cards, and a dusty crystal ball sat in front of her. I was sure I saw a swirl of smoke inside the glass as I passed, and I hesitated, wondering if I should stop, but I knew I should keep following the woman leading me. On and on I went. When I looked past all the delights on the train and out of the window, the sky was a little lighter, like morning would be coming soon. I also felt a little sad. I didn't want the day or night or whatever this was to end, though I knew it would. All good things come to an end. I was on a journey, and I half felt like I was in a dream, the way that reality seemed to shift constantly from one moment to the next. Each time I tried to count something or work out what was going on, I found myself pleasantly disoriented. I followed the woman in the flapper dress until we reached what I supposed was the dining cart. It was a sight to behold. The tables that stretched before me were covered with white linens, perfect china, silver cutlery, and glistening glassware. Servers seemed to float with ice buckets filled with clinking bottles of champagne. They moved smoothly from table to table, topping up glasses, and I watched all the diners as they pressed their champagne flutes together, saying cheers merrily. To one side, there was a marble cocktail bar, and many bottles of spirits and liquors sat on the back bar. And then there was the food. I saw towers of langoustines piled up in front of a large group of giggling women, and a huge wobbling trifle that a whole table seemed to be sharing. I felt my mouth begin to water when I spotted a joint of roast beef and crispy potatoes. It gave off the rich scent of rosemary and garlic. It didn't seem like food from one time period, which made it all the more exciting. A couple tore into a giant pizza stacked with ham and pineapple, and a group tackled a large plate of California rolls. "Come," the woman said, and led me to a table at the end of the carriage. I sat opposite her, not knowing what to say. I felt a little shy, and I let out a deep breath. It was good to sit and rest and look. "It's fabulous, isn't it?" she said. "Where exactly are we going?" I asked. "Oh, don't worry about that. It's all about the journey," she said cryptically. "Right, now it's time to eat." This felt perfectly natural. "What are we having?" I asked. She considered it. "Well, we have anything you want, so we could have your favorite food. What's that?" I thought. My favorite food was a bit boring. Maybe fish and chips or pasta, something hearty. But it didn't feel right for this special night on the steam train. She cocked her head at my indecision. "Instead of your favorite food, what about something that you really want right now? Something that suits exactly how you feel. Don't think too hard," she said. And so I sat there and relaxed. I tried to think of everything becoming easier. I felt my shoulders loosen as the train made its way along. I could hear the engine humming and the soothing rhythmic chug. I didn't focus on anything. I just thought of tastes I'd had in the past and memories of food. I let those memories swirl around, not selecting any particular one, just seeing what crossed my mind and observing as the thoughts drifted slowly. "A cheese fondue," I said, the words rising before I could even think about it with more care. "Perfect," the woman said. "I adore fondue." It was hard to assess the time on the steam train. We could only have waited for a few minutes. Then, a group of waiters came over with a fondue. It was served in a heavy ceramic pot with a small burner underneath, and I could see the cheese bubbling away. Placed around the pot was a whole selection of things to dip. There were cooked vegetables, broccoli and cauliflower, pear slices and cured meats. It smelled mouth-watering, all buttery and delicious. "Marvellous," the woman said. "Let's dig in." And so we did. I was absolutely ravenous, and I tried all the different options. It was incredible, the perfect mix of fresh vegetables and rich cheese. Afterwards, we drank creamy coffees and devoured a chocolate tart with crumbling pastry and lots of cream. I finished every last crumb. I wondered how much it would cost, and I asked the woman, but she just shook her head. "You have a tab," she said. "Don't worry about it." After the waiter had cleared our plates, an older man approached me. He wore a thick scarf and a woolen hat. He looked very comfortable on the train, and though he was old, he moved quickly with a slight spring to his step. "You're here," he said. I was used to the effusive greetings by now, but it still gave me a fuzzy feeling that the man seemed quite happy to see me. On the steam train, it seemed like I was the star attraction. I didn't need to do anything or entertain in any way, but people seemed to enjoy my company, which was a small but wonderful thing. "Ah," the woman said, "you'll like this next one." She pointed for me to follow the man, and so I did. We raced down through the dining cart, and people waved and greeted us as we went. So many carts passed again, and it seemed impossible to count, though I tried. Every time I wanted to work it out, I found my thoughts become all scrambled, until I realized that we just needed to keep going. The luggage was getting bigger. The suitcases looked huge, and I saw that the carriage ceilings were rising high, which was impossible, but somehow felt right. I was curious about where we could possibly be going. Then I heard the jolly sound of a fiddle, and I was even more intrigued. When we reached the carriage that seemed to be our end destination, it was the size of a huge hall. I walked in, and hundreds of people were dancing everywhere. A ceilidh. There was a whistle, and I thought it was the train. But no, it was a flute from the band that was set up on a small stage. There was the flautist, and someone with the bagpipes, which were loud and booming. I noted the piano to one side, and a man with an accordion jumped onto the stage in one smooth movement and began to join in. "Welcome," a woman said to me joyously. "You're here," another man called out, clapping his hands in delight. I didn't know any ceilidh dances, but I could see a line of people, arm in arm, all smiles, dancing away. Instinctively I joined in, and linked arms with a friendly-looking man and a woman on the other side, and I found it was easy to follow their steps. The crowd around me was a brightly coloured blur of tartan and smiles. Each sway of the carriage made the dance more exciting, and we lurched together, laughing. I was sure this was the end of my journey on this magical steam train, full of colour and joy and love. Then I spotted the magician. He came over to me and put his hand on my shoulder. He whispered to me that my stop was next, and that felt natural. Very slowly, the train drew to a stop, and I stepped off onto the empty platform. The night was cool, and I enjoyed the breeze on my face. I was close to home. I walked down the street and felt for the ticket in my pocket. It was there, the thick paper of the ticket, and I pulled it out and held it for a while, thinking about all the things I'd seen and the friendliness I'd experienced at every turn. I couldn't wait to tell my friends about it. I reached my house and I went upstairs. There I pulled on my pajamas and sank into bed. It was the perfect temperature, the sheets warm and snug around me, and the pillows plump. My head rested against them. My body was completely supported like a long hug. I'd known it deep down. I'd always known I'd end up home, safe and warm, my eyelids so heavy I couldn't help but close them and welcome in the sleep after a long night. The night faded away, and I could just about hear the gentle chug of the steam train when I closed my eyes, like my mind was slowly letting go of the memory, releasing it easily, and my breaths became slow, in and out, in and out. I realized I couldn't hear anything at all. I thought of the train continuing on its way without me, going deeper and deeper into the snowy mountain range. I thought of who it would pick up, and I let the thoughts of bright sequins and beautiful suits pass through my mind. My journey on the steam train was over, and I knew it was a dream, but I couldn't believe just how vivid and magical the dream had been. I wanted to tell my friends all about it, but it would be hard to describe the magic to anyone else. The night on a steam train seemed to live in a space between the real and the imaginary. And there was something very special about that. A memory to treasure forever, with the hope of stepping aboard again someday. We'll leave our story there for tonight. All aboard the dream train now. No tickets required. Sleep well, and see you next time.